The crimson glow of Saturn's rings cast an eerie light across the bridge of the Earth warship. Aegis, humanity's most advanced destroyer, patrolling the outer rim of the solar system. Colonel Maya Rodriguez stood at the central command station, her dark eyes scanning the holographic displays that surrounded her like a digital constellation. The ship's plasma shields hummed with a low frequency that reverberated through the hull, a constant reminder of the delicate balance between life and the void. Status report, Lieutenant Trio. Rodriguez commanded her voice, carrying the authority of someone who had earned her rank through years of deep space combat. Lieutenant James Trio, the ship's chief communications officer, looked up from his console, sweat beading on his forehead, despite the regulation temperature on the bridge. All systems nominal, Colonel. The quantum reactor is operating at 97% efficiency, and our new signal cloaking device is functioning within normal parameters. Major Sarah Banks. The weapons engineer checked her instruments and nodded. Railgun systems are fully charged and the plasma torpedoes are ready for deployment. The new quantum-enhanced targeting system shows no anomalies. Dr. Kenji Ishikawa, the ship's specialist in cloaking technology, was bent over his station fingers, dancing across holographic interfaces. The Japanese physicist had been instrumental in developing the Aegis' most classified systems, technologies that Earth's military hoped would never need to be used in anger. Dr. Ishikawa, how are our stealth capabilities? Rodriguez asked, knowing that their survival might depend on remaining undetected in the vast emptiness of space. The quantum shroud is operating at maximum efficiency, Colonel. We should be virtually invisible to most scanning technologies. However, I must stress that this technology is still experimental, and prolonged use could result in system failure. Rodriguez nodded grimly. She understood the risks better than most. The Aegis wasn't just a warship. It was humanity's first line of defense equipped with weapons technology that could theoretically destroy an entire star system. The zero-point energy weapons hidden deep within the ship's core were a closely guarded secret, known only to a handful of Earth's most trusted military leaders. The bridge fell into its usual rhythm of quiet efficiency, when suddenly alarms began blaring across every station. Lieutenant Trio's face went pale as he stared at his sensors. Colonel, multiple contacts approaching from the direction of Mars. Configuration unknown. Count, 37 vessels, speed increasing exponentially. Rodriguez felt her blood run cold. On screen. The main view screen flickered to life, showing what appeared to be empty space. Then, gradually shapes began to materialize. Sleek, organic-looking vessels that seemed to flow through space, rather than travel through it. They were unlike anything in Earth's databases. Vornax fleet. Dr. Ishikawa whispered, his face draining of color. I've heard rumors, reports from the outer colonies. They're real. Battle stations, Rodriguez barked. Raise shields to maximum power. Activate all defensive systems. As the crew scrambled to their positions, the enemy fleet continued its approach. What happened next defied every tactical manual Rodriguez had ever studied. Instead of opening fire, the Vornax ships began emitting intense scanning beams that lanced through space toward the Aegis. They're scanning us, Banks reported, her voice tight with tension. The beams are penetrating our outer defenses. They're reading everything, Colonel. Hull composition, weapon signatures, crew complement. Increase shield power. Dr. Ishikawa engaged the quantum shroud immediately. I'm trying, Colonel, but their scanning technology is unlike anything we've encountered. They're using some form of quantum entanglement detection. Our shields they're not designed for this type of intrusion. Rodriguez watched in growing alarm as layer after layer of the Aegis defenses were peeled away by the alien scans. The ship shuddered as the beams penetrated deeper, probing secrets that were meant to remain hidden. Colonel, Tria said, his voice barely above a whisper. We're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Put it through. President Russell's face appeared on a smaller screen, flanked by members of the International Council. Even through the quantum communication array, Rodriguez could see the stress etched on their faces. "Colonel Rodriguez, we're monitoring the situation. Under no circumstances are you to engage in direct combat, unless fired upon. We're implementing Protocol 7 immediately." Rodriguez knew Protocol 7, the creation of a massive holographic deception designed to make Earth's defenses appear more formidable than they actually were. It was a desperate bluff, but it might buy them time. "Understood, Mr. President. What are your orders regarding our special cargo?" Russell's expression grew even more grave. "Maintain absolute secrecy about the zero-point weapons. If they discover what we've learned, to harness the consequences could be catastrophic for the entire solar system." As the transmission ended, Dr. Ishikawa called out from his station, panic creeping into his usually composed voice. "Colonel, they've broken through our outer scanning barriers. They're detecting the quantum signatures from our weapon systems. If they penetrate the final layer..." "How long before they reach the core systems?" "Maybe 10 minutes, 15 at most." Rodriguez made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. "Major Banks, prepare a warning shot. Fire one railgun round across their bow. Make it spectacular." "Colonel, are you sure that could be interpreted as an act of aggression?" "Do it." The Aegis shuddered as its main railgun discharged, sending a tungsten projectile streaking through space at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The round passed harmlessly in front of the Vornax formation, its passage creating a brilliant flash as it interacted with cosmic dust and radiation. For a moment, the alien fleet seemed to pause. Then, inexorably, they continued their approach, their scans growing more intense and focused. On Earth, massive holographic generators came online, projecting images of entire fleets that didn't exist, weapon platforms that were pure illusion, and defensive installations that existed only in the realm of light and electromagnetic radiation. The deception was masterful, but Rodriguez knew it wouldn't fool close-range scans. "They're not buying the holographic fleet," Banks reported. "Their scans are too sophisticated. They're focusing on us specifically." Dr. Ishikawa suddenly looked up from his console, his face a mask of terror. "Colonel, the quantum shroud is failing. The scanning beams are causing a cascade failure in the containment field. If it collapses completely, they'll have a direct view of our zero-point energy cores." Rodriguez felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders. In the depths of the Aegis weapons, capable of tearing holes in space-time itself, lay dormant their existence known to perhaps a dozen people in the entire solar system. If the Vornax discovered this technology, they would either demand its secret or destroy Earth to prevent its use. "How long?" she asked quietly. 3 minutes, maybe less." Lieutenant Tria suddenly called out, "Colonel, we're receiving data from our long-range sensors. The Vornax fleet. They're not just scanning us. They're transmitting to each other. And Colonel, they're afraid." "Afraid of us?" "Yes, ma'am. The scans they've conducted so far show them exactly what kind of conventional weapons we have. But there are energy readings they can't identify. They know we have something, but they don't know what." Rodriguez looked around the bridge at her crew. People she had trained with, fought alongside, and grown to trust with her life. She knew what she had to do, even as her heart broke at the thought. "Dr. Ishikawa, can you manually overload the zero-point energy containment system?" The physicist stared at her in shock. "Colonel, that would create an explosion visible from Pluto. The Aegis would be completely destroyed, and any ship within 1,000,000 kilometers would be severely damaged." "Would it send a message?" "It would send a message that humanity possesses technology capable of annihilating star systems, yes. But, Colonel, we'd all die in the process." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "And our deaths would buy Earth the time it needs to prepare real defenses. The Vornax would retreat, convinced that a species capable of such weapons and willing to use them defensively represents too great a risk for immediate invasion." Major Banks stood up from her station. "Colonel, there has to be another way." "There isn't, Major. Look at your scans. They've identified every conventional weapon system we have. In 30 seconds, they'll break through the quantum shroud and discover the zero-point cores. When they do, they'll realize that humanity has learned to weaponize zero-point energy, but doesn't fully understand it. They'll know we're dangerous, but inexperienced. They'll attack before we can develop true mastery of these weapons. Dr. Ishikawa's hands hovered over his controls. Colonel, initiating a zero-point cascade will require manual confirmation from both you and Major Banks. Are you certain about this course of action? Rodriguez looked at the view screen where the Vornax fleet continued its relentless approach. She thought about her daughter on Earth, about the billions of people who would never know about the sacrifice about to be made on their behalf. I'm certain, Doctor, Major Banks. Banks closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with grim determination. For Earth, Colonel. For Earth. Together, Rodriguez and Banks placed their hands on the biometric scanners. Dr. Ishikawa began the sequence that would overload the zero-point energy cores. Quantum shroud failure in 10 seconds. Trio reported, his voice steady despite the circumstances. 9, 8, 7. All hands abandon ship immediately, Rodriguez announced over the ship's communication system. This is not a drill. Proceed to escape pods and emergency shuttles. You have 90 seconds. 6, 5, 4. Dr. Ishikawa, thank you for your service to humanity. 3, 2, 1. Quantum shroud has failed. They're scanning the zero-point energy cores directly. On the view screen, the Vornax fleet suddenly changed formation, their ships spreading out as their sensors detected energy readings that defied their understanding of physics. Vice Admiral Krathal, commander of the Vornax expedition, stared at the data with growing horror. The human vessel contained weapons that could tear apart the fabric of space itself, and the energy readings suggested that the humans were about to use them. Zero-point cascade initiated, Dr. Ishikawa announced calmly. Containment failure in 60 seconds. Rodriguez watched as escape pods began launching from the Aegis, carrying her crew to safety. She remained on the bridge with Dr. Ishikawa, Major Banks, and Lieutenant Trio, who had refused direct orders to evacuate. Colonel Trio said, "The Vornax fleet is pulling back. They're detecting the energy buildup." 30 seconds to cascade failure, Dr. Ishikawa reported. On the alien flagship, alarms were screaming. The human ship was about to explode with the force of a small star, and the Vornax finally understood what they were facing. A species that had learned to harness the fundamental forces of the universe and was willing to use them in self-defense. The implications were terrifying. 20 seconds. Rodriguez closed her eyes and thought about her daughter one last time. It's been an honor serving with all of you. 10 seconds. The Vornax fleet was already in full retreat, their ships accelerating away from the doomed human vessel at maximum velocity. Vice Admiral Krathal transmitted a single message to his high command. Human species possesses zero-point energy weapons. Immediate invasion inadvisable. Recommend long-term observation and diplomatic contact. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Aegis vanished in a flash of light that was visible from Saturn's moons. The zero-point energy cascade tore a temporary rift in space-time, releasing energies that had been contained since the birth of the universe. The explosion was precisely controlled, thanks to Dr. Ishikawa's calculations. Powerful enough to demonstrate humanity's capabilities, but not so powerful as to damage the fleeing Vornax ships. The alien fleet continued its retreat toward the outer solar system, carrying with them the knowledge that humanity was not to be underestimated. 3 days later, rescue ships from Earth arrived at the coordinates where the Aegis had made its final stand. They found the escape pods and emergency shuttles, along with debris from the destroyed warship. Colonel Maya Rodriguez was posthumously awarded the Solar Cross, humanity's highest military honor. President Russell stood before the United Nations Assembly, the weight of recent events evident in his bearing. "The sacrifice of the Aegis and her crew has bought us time," he announced. "Time to prepare, time to grow stronger, and time to show the universe that humanity will not go quietly into the night." In the months that followed, Earth's greatest scientists began reverse engineering Vornak's technology, recovered from previous encounters on the outer colonies. The holographic fleet that had briefly protected Earth became reality as humanity poured resources into its space defense forces. Dr. Kenji Ishikawa was found among the survivors, having been forced into an escape pod by Lieutenant Trio in the final moments before the explosion. He spent the rest of his life developing new defensive technologies, always haunted by the memory of the choice they had made. The Vornaks never returned in force. Occasional scout ships would venture into the solar system, only to retreat when confronted by Earth's increasingly sophisticated defenses. Humanity had bought itself time with the sacrifice of one ship and her crew, but that time came at a price that would never be forgotten. In the official records, the incident was classified as First Contact Deterrent Action. But among Earth's military leadership, it was remembered differently. They called it the day humanity proved that even the smallest flame can drive back the darkness if it burns bright enough. Years later, when Earth established its first permanent base on Europa, a memorial was built overlooking the ice plains. Carved into a wall of polished metal were the words, "In memory of the crew of the Aegis," who showed the universe that humanity's greatest weapon is not our technology, but our willingness to sacrifice everything for those who come after us. And in the vast emptiness of space where the Aegis had made her final stand, space itself still bore the faint scars of that moment, when humanity declared to the universe that Earth would not fall without a fight. The zero-point explosion had left a region of subtly distorted space-time, a monument invisible to the naked eye, but detectable by sensitive instruments. It served as a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquering others, but from proving that you cannot be conquered yourself. The Vornaks had come to scan Earth's defenses and found them wanting. But they had also discovered something they hadn't expected: a species that understood that true strength sometimes requires the ultimate sacrifice. The story of the Aegis became legend among Earth's space forces, passed down from generation to generation of officers and crew members. It was a tale of courage in the face of impossible odds, of sacrifice for the greater good, and of the principle that sometimes the best way to win a war is to make the cost of victory too high for the enemy to bear. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Vornaks continued to watch and wait, remembering the day they learned that Earth was defended, not just by weapons and shields, but by people willing to pay any price to protect their home. It was a lesson that would influence their approach to humanity for generations to come, ensuring that when contact was finally re-established, it would be on terms of mutual respect rather than conquest. The sacrifice of Colonel Maya Rodriguez and her crew had achieved exactly what they had hoped. It had given humanity the time it needed to prepare for whatever the universe might bring. And in doing so, it had proved that sometimes the greatest victories are won not by those who live to celebrate them, but by those who die to make them possible.